I should be back. I don't know if Twitch's disconnect protection handled that. Either way, I'm back. I was trying to switch to this scene. Every time I did, everything froze. Well, so disconnect protection requires you to not send anything, and after 90 seconds, it'll disable. No, I'm deleting the tweet. Essentially, there was a big enough gap where I technically disconnected, even though my end hadn't disconnected. Well, I'm now on this scene. I don't know how that happened. Anyway, let's... basically, Dylan, I tried switching to this scene, and half of the OBS UI froze, the rendering thread definitely froze, and so my live timer was still going, my frame rate was stuck at 0.96 FPS, and my average time to render frame was stuck at 1006 milliseconds. Oh, and my kilobits per second was stuck at 0.2. I'm gonna have to check the log for that later. Luckily, I have verbose logging on, so it'll provide extra detail. But it's not going to be useful to anyone because I'm using a custom build. The best part, though, is I load the music in a browser panel in OBS. The music was still playing that whole time. You know what? Let's take a look at the log file while this builds. Oh, I wonder if WebSocket, if OBS WebSocket caused it to freak out. It was stuck in a loop. It was also stuck on only 191 frames missed in rendering. Yes, this is very Portal. Stream keys aren't logged. Logs are relatively safe to share, because we use them for debugging. Like, you send the log to us and we go, hey, here's what's wrong with your OBS. OBS WebSocket is too active. Yeah, average frame time was stuck at 1009. At least OBS WebSocket confirms everything. 1903 missed frames. CPU usage 5%. FPS 0.96. Yeah. Unless you're using Stream Elements fork of the browser plugin, then you might leak your Facebook password. Yeah, that happened once. Their browser plugin, or the fork that they make, by by default logs info, warning, and error from browser sources and browser panels. And Facebook was logging stuff that should be secure. The combination of the two, log file has your password. It's fine now, I think. Okay. Let's rebuild. Aha! Okay, so it's doing this again. So sometimes... So, the virtual cam is now part of OBS as of the next version. And sometimes when you rebuild OBS, it has trouble copying the file over. Error copying file to build directory. So sometimes you have to go in there and delete it yourself. Apparently Skype thinks I'm trying to use virtual camera. And Teams! And Teams! Okay, so Skype was using the 32-bit file, and Teams is using the 64-bit file. Let's get rid of it. Neither of these programs have any Well, crap. None of these programs have a reason to be reading that DLL right now. Shit. Slight problem. Oh man is right. I'll take the rename working fine. I just need it to not exist. Exactly, Dylan. Okay, so, as I was attempting to say before to answer your question, is when Jim made groups in sources, he basically had to rewrite how the sources box worked in the first place. No, it doesn't, Dylan. When I asked during... As far as I know, there has been no update since January last year when I asked. So, when source groups were introduced, that required a restructure of the sources box, and groups themselves are super buggy in ways that nobody predicted and nobody knows how to fix. Or at least no one has dug into it, because no one wants to touch groups. And the scenes box, and what Jim has basically said is he doesn't want to use the element that he chose to use for the sources list. He doesn't want to use that in the scenes list, which means we can't do color coding and we can't do grouping of any kind. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, I think there needs to be some brainstorming and discussion of what would be a good way to provide grouping. One would be the ability to hide scenes. There is a open request for comments on a DSK, which would be an overlay that is visible regardless of which scene you're in, and you can choose how many or which of those items to display at the same time, regardless of scene. And of course, another aspect is, well, to some extent, this is what scene collections are for. But switching scene collections is messy. And one of the issues you run into at the moment is when unloading the first scene collection, it doesn't wait for everything to be unloaded before loading the next scene collection. So say you have a webcam that's loaded in scene collection 1, and then you switch to scene collection 2. What'll happen is scene collection 1 will start unloading, scene collection 2 will start loading, then scene collection 1 will finish unloading. Which means by the time you see scene collection 2, the webcam is no longer visible because at the time of trying to load the webcam, it was still loaded by the previous scene collection and was unavailable in that initial moment. And on top of that, as Dylan said, switching scene collections is expensive because you're unloading everything and then loading everything again. Now, a good way to do that would be to do it more slowly, have something when switching scene collections where during the unload you're showing some kind of placeholder and you're unloading the sources more slowly. Now, of course, the more sources and scenes you have, the more expensive that'll be. Yeah, what Dylan said. It's a complicated process, and while you're allowed to do it while live, it is not recommended to do it while live. Okay, so the thing that I've been working on and off is this. As you can see, I've now frozen OBS just by trying to interact with it, because that is how bad my code is right now. Because I left it running, and that caused it to freak out. Yes, what Dylan said. Well, it depends, DJ. Some people never switch scene collections. Some people switch scene collections every time they're recording something different, or every time they're streaming a different thing. So for example, say you run a video podcast and you also have a personal stream. You might have a scene collection for each, and so on the days when you're streaming your personal thing, you will load that. The times when you're running a podcast, you will switch to that scene collection. That is the general use case for scene collections, but there are people who have so many scenes and so much complexity that they split up what they have into multiple scene collections rather than having it on one. Yep, this is still frozen again. Dylan, at some stage, I really need your help figuring this one out, because I am so stuck. Apparently, I've made it so bad that I can't even show you what this is supposed to do. This is my cursor code. And it occurs in Windows Basic Preview, which is a nightmare to work with, as you mentioned. Yeah. Yeah, this branch is completely dead every time I launch it. Alright, let's just do preview cursors without hover. So there are two levels to it. The first level is when you click and drag a corner of a source, the mouse cursor will change to a relevant cursor. That part's easy and doesn't crash as far as I can tell. Or if it does crash, it's like 1 in 100. The other one is currently there's no visual indicator in terms of the mouse of knowing what you can drag and what you can grab. And so the second aspect is showing a hover cursor before you click. Now that part crashes 9 times out of 10, and usually at random times. So yeah, once you're back into the swing of OBS stuff, I will need to sit down with you for like probably a whole day. Ideally it'd be for an hour, but who knows with this stuff. Just to figure out where I'm going wrong in my code. Because as far as I can tell, the hover code should work. Okay, which program is using the webcam this time? This branch is probably just super outdated. Yeah, that's why I said when you reach a point where you're capable of it again, especially with lockdown and all of this stuff. But basically, you can see when I grab this edge here, my cursor changes, and I've managed to make it work on every corner. And while you're moving, so during drag and stuff, it's fine. It's during the hover that I run into issues where I don't know if I'm updating it too frequently or what, but for some reason the whole program just hangs the moment I try and get the cursor to show up. It did work fine for a bit. Well, it would freeze after 5 seconds instead of immediately, but I do know the code works, yes. Eventually, basically I have an update cursor function which runs during crop, stretch, and during the mouse move event. And I have a feeling that's when oh no, that's when adjusting. No, that code's fine. Hold on. That code 100% works fine. Will hang OBS randomly. Essentially what I do is during the update during the mouse move event, I basically go I check everything, and then it specifically happens during the get stretch handle data function, which my guess is it's not supposed to run on every mouse move. Yeah, hang on, I have this documented here. Let me grab a notepad. Specifically, there's a test handle function. And it causes a memory leak where the process memory just goes up and back down repeatedly. Let me pull up that code for you. I'm also going to hop into my Discord, in case you prefer chatting by voice. I'm going to switch to this branch. Oh, hi!
I am tired. It's yeah.
Long day?
Yes and no. I didn't do much.
That's me every day, though. It feels like a long day, even though I didn't do much. Window basic preview.
I got off my SGDQ social media shift an hour ago.
That's good. Yeah. So, is it find handle at pause? Yes. So basically, if I comment out these lines here, it doesn't freeze, but obviously it doesn't actually do anything, because obviously these are designed to check which action to trigger the moment you click.
Well,
I have a feeling
within a particular distance of a handle.
Yeah. And I have a feeling, because this code isn't designed to run on every mouse move, it deadlocks because there's something else that's...
Okay, well, go to get transformed pause. What's in there? Fix result. Okay, so it's just setting it's just applying the matrix effectively. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's not okay. And then go back transform this closest. So, okay. And handled data is should just be a struct of some kind, isn't it? Can you peek at the definition for handle find data?
Yeah. Where is peak? It's usually at the top.
Peek is the fourth one.
Ah, there we go. Peak definition.
Yeah, it's just a basic struct.
No, it just runs get
Yeah,
draw
it's just
transform.
calling some stuff. It's not. There's nothing in there that should cause a deadlock unless scene item get draw transform is locking something. Okay.
Get draw transform.
It's in the definition of the struct.
No, that just runs a matrix copy.
So okay, so there's nothing in that test handle function that would cause that locks a mutex.
Correct.
So there's no reason it should deadlock.
Correct. Which is why I'm confused.
So okay, and can you peek at get box transform? OBS scene item get box transform. Oh, it's not able to figure out where it is.
Yeah, it can't figure it out, which is fine. Yeah, that's also a matrix 4 copy.
Okay, so yeah, it's literally just copying matrices around. Okay, so the only time that this function would ever call... Okay, so then the only other places I could think... Oh!
I have a feeling
scene
it
item...
could be...
OBS scene item group enum items might be locking a mutex.
That was the other potential.
I'm so glad that the delay on Twitch is not bad enough that I can... that it's like only 2 seconds. It's pretty good.
Well, that's also through Restream, right? Yeah, it runs enum items, which is very likely to cause a...
Oh yeah, OBS scene enum items definitely locks. It calls a lock on a mutex.
Yeah.
So what I would actually do is when you go debugging in Visual Studio, when the deadlock occurs, pause and then check where it's paused in all the different threads. Because that will show you where it's stuck.
The thing is, the only... I'd have to just run it less often, right?
I still think you should do that test. I think you should still pause it when it's locked.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to build.
It's getting stuck. Because like it shouldn't have that shouldn't, even if the issue is you're running it too often, that shouldn't actually be an issue.
Theoretically. Velasip, no, because this part of OBS isn't controlled by Qt at all.
Yeah, this is the only part of, well, one of a few parts of the OBS interface which is provided directly by us having our own custom child window. So it's completely
I don't even know if you would call
rendering.
it a child window. It's basically a whole...
Okay, as far as Windows is concerned, it's a child window.
Okay. Okay.
So you've caused the deadlock.
Yep.
You pause. And then so then you have to go through and figure out, like, you have to check go through the in the top next below the continue button, you can select the thread you want to look at. So,
oh my.
Like, yeah, a lot of those you don't have to care about. So what I would say is try graphics thread would be a good start.
It's
Go to
currently
the
in a
call
mutex
stack.
lock. That would be a...
That's a good sign. So you want to go to the call stack.
Which is usually in locals, right?
Locals is variables. So call
Lock
stack. Okay,
guard,
so it's
draw
under
selected
draw
item.
selected
Yeah.
item. And it's in an enum. Okay, but what happens if you go jump to that point and draw selected? Like, where is it locking?
Window basic
Oh, it's with
preview.
the select mutex. Okay, so why is that not being unlocked? Because I'm looking at the call stack. It's not a case. It's like it's not a recursive lock, but that's not an issue because it's not being called recursively.
Well, to be fair, the code that the functions that I'm running, all of these are not designed to run on hover. They're designed to run on click. So
yeah, but that still shouldn't be an issue. Okay, I need to pull up the code, not necessarily your branch, but just pull up the code before you've made any modifications to it. And just figure out like where in the code does it call a lock on the select mutex? Because it could be locked in another thread because it's clearly not happening as a recursive thing.
It's also not happening in terms of me calling this function.
It's been so long since I've what's it called? Hover mutex? What did I call it?
Select mutex.
Select mutex. Okay, so it gets locked. Okay, so it can be locked in the UI. Okay, so go from try it instead of going into the graphics thread in Visual Studio. See if you can find the UI thread. If you can, it might be main, but
I can certainly check what it's stuck on in the main thread. Yeah, that one's also calling enum items, and that's where my code is hitting.
Get stretch handle data. Okay.
And Jack the Mage, thanks for the follow. Welcome to the order.
Okay. So get stretch handle data is calling a lock. But it's okay, but that's a lock on the scene. It's a different thing. Yeah, it's both the graphics thread and the UI thread, or the main thread, I should say. Both of them are currently trying to call a lock on a mutex, which is currently in use. So the issue is still figuring out where is it not being released. Okay, but we know now main thread doesn't look like the UI thread. Can you go back to look at your list of threads? Once you get past all the NV stuff we don't care about and NT stuff we don't care about.
We've got graphics thread, we've got Qt54, got CR browser main, compositor tile worker, video capture thread.
There's a lot of Chrome stuff in there.
Yeah, there is.
Try Qt
MP
Core.
media thread. Yeah, there's nothing else here. There's a groupie thread.
Yeah, try Qt Core.
I don't have.
Okay, so that's happening That's happening outside of it. Okay, so. Whoa. Okay. Go back to main thread.
Is the video thread?
I know it's weird that I'm trying to debug by proxy. Go back to main thread.
Oh no, not the penguins.
Run program, mouse move, get stretch, enum. Okay, so that's where that's being.
Yeah, so this is definitely my code, right? This bit here.
So that's how. Okay, but then that is trying to call on a lock. Okay, go back to graphics thread.
Graphics thread. In here somewhere.
I'm starting to think I know what's happening. And it's getting stuck on a lock in drawer selected items. If you go down, okay, so it's the graphic thread is getting stuck on the select mutex. It's currently locked for some reason, but it's currently also locking the scene mutex. The main thread is waiting on the scene mutex to be released, and that's the deadlock. So the question is, who's holding the select mutex?
Is there a way to check that?
Maybe.
Not
C++
at this frequency?
debugging. Who owns mutex? Is it possible to determine the thread holding a mutex? In Linux, it looks like it might be.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can launch my Linux VM and we can debug it there.
Oh, hey, there's a whole Wikibooks page on debugging Linux applications and why deadlocks might be happening.
Oh, I wonder why that could be.
But no, it doesn't look like on Visual Studio. That's entirely easy. I guess I'm just gonna look at all the different places where select mute. Okay, can you go? Oh no, go back to the main thread. Mouse move event. Does mouse move event lock it? Process click selected at pause.
Not directly. It goes 3.
It does lock it at the end.
Wait, mouse move event
If
does?
the mouse isn't down, if it's a move in the, you know how there's an if mouse down in mouse move event?
Oh, you're right.
The else statement has a lock on the select mutex.
So I
But
need...
then that should be clear. But no, but then all it's doing, it's only locking as much time as is needed to clear the preview items, and then it's immediately unlocking. Because the way that particular syntax works with the lock guard is it basically, it locks it, and then as soon as it exits scope, it automatically unlocks it for you. So that is unlocking. Oh, but you're locking it before your code. Wait, no.
Because I just added my code after. Because I essentially wanted the latest item, right? Or do I even care?
Okay, so I think I know what's happening now. That lock is still in scope at that point, so it's locking, okay? It's locking the select mutex, and then it's trying to enumerate items within the scene because of all the functions you're calling. But that's locked by the main thread. But the main thread is locked. Sorry, it's locked by the graphic thread. But the graphic thread is waiting for that to unlock. That's your deadlock.
Okay, so if I were to do
that lock guard needs to be replaced with.
What if I do that? It's no longer in scope.
I don't know if it's block scope or function scope. So let me check. Let me just check for you.
But that explains it.
Turns out class is a mutex wrapper that provides a convenient AI mechanism running mutex for a duration of a scoped block.
Ha! Okay, so this should work.
Hopefully that fixes your deadlock.
Only one way to find out.
But I'm now thinking there might be some race conditions, but they're hardly the end of the world. They're not breaking race conditions, but
I mean, step 1, let's get it working, right? Yeah, there we go. Perfect. No luck.
Oh, there we go.
See, you solved my problem in 4 minutes.
Was it really 4?
No, I don't know. When did you?
More like 10 or 12.
Yeah, 12 minutes, let's say. And you didn't have direct access to my code. You were doing it by proxy. And
a
it's
2-second delay. At
and
least.
it's past midnight. Yeah.
Okay, but here's the other thing I'm thinking though, is the reason why there might still be a race condition is it's possible that because that mutex is going out of scope, the main thread might change the contents of it, and then the graphics thread is doing wrong thing and might do an access. So what I would do...
I don't even know if this is a good idea. I don't know if... Actually, no, that's probably fine, because it doesn't need to clear it if it's empty anyway. So that's fine. But it's adding an item. Yeah, no, this is a hacky fix.
It's a temporary fix.
It's a temporary fix that verifies what is causing our issue, but it is not a fix.
Yeah, so that what it is it's a good troubleshooting method, but it isn't a fix. No, you're right.
Yes.
So what the that if statement is a bad if statement. There needs to be a way to unlock it. Basically, instead of using a lock guard and having it be automatic, this is going to need to be a case where it has to be lock it at a specific point, unlock it at a specific point.
It's a debugging workaround, DJ. It is not a... How best to describe this? It would not be good to actually use in production. It was basically to verify, is this the exact line in the code that is causing the deadlock? In this case, yes. Okay, let's work out a proper solution. That's the only thing that...
Okay, so if you go down in the code... Okay, so what I would do is change it so okay, so basically the best point to... There are 2 points to unlock it. You would want to add an else statement to that. And unlock it in there. And the other point would be immediately after entering the if statement. Because get stretch handle data is going to want to call lock.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to also verify that
yeah, I also want to verify the item count.
You want to unlock before get stretch handle data, and you want to unlock in the event that the function if the if statement fails. Those are the 2 times you want to unlock. And luckily, it's relatively easy to just use the mutex rather than the lock guard. I just need to remember the syntax. You don't want to use a lock guard. The lock guard's the automatic one. This one you want to do manually. Okay, there's a function called... Okay, so that line which is lock guard, I'd comment it out just for now, but so you can revert back to it if needed. But what you want to change it to, what you want to put in its place is select mutex .lock is the function you want to call.
Mm-hmm.
And then select mutex .unlock.
That makes it easier.
See if that works, because that would be the more correct solution.
Here goes nothing.
Even if it isn't a pretty solution.
Yep, that works.
I still don't think that's the best solution in terms of like what you would want to submit final, but
it does solve the deadlock.
Correct implementation.
Yeah.
The implementation is correct even. Really, the solution would be to change out the lock to be a recursive lock. In that case, the lock guard can be in place. Do you understand recursive locks?
No. Locks and mutexes are completely, other side of the football field.
Well, do you understand what a mutex is doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea that only when it's locked, only one thread can have acquire the lock at a time, and so only one thread can execute on something at a particular time if it owns the lock. Like,
it's so that stuff doesn't change while you're trying to do stuff with it.
Yeah. So other threads have to wait to acquire a lock, and only one thing can have a lock at the same time. Semaphores allow you to have a number of locks, so like you can have a certain number of threads with access to it. But that's by the point. A recursive lock is basically if a thread already has a lock, then it will accept. Then if you call lock on it again, it just continues.
Yeah.
So like if I was to have a recursing function, and each time that function gets called, it would try to acquire a lock on the same mutex. It will succeed. It will just say, okay, oh, you already own the lock to this. Okay, so we're going to give you another lock to it. And so basically a thread can't deadlock itself. The issue in this case was that the thread was deadlocking itself. It was trying to acquire a lock that it already had. And so it was waiting for something that it could only give. A recursive lock solves the problem because it would just be like, okay, I already have the lock. I'm asking for a lock now, therefore I should just continue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That would be a better solution. But I don't know how recursive locks work in C++, but knowing C++, it's probably a simple change of just the name of something. Recursive lock. Oh, what do you know? There's an object in the standard library called a recursive mutex.
Oh.
A recursive mutex is a lockable object, just like mutex, but allows the same thread to acquire multiple levels of ownership over the mutex objects. So actually, that would be the better solution. Is don't do the manual unlock and lock. Still use the lock guard. Just change the type from std mutex to std recursive underscore mutex.
Yeah.
C++ is kind of fun in that way. It's like, oh, we have this problem. I wonder if there's a solution. Oh, there's a type just for it. Okay, here's a question. Do you actually know what mutex is short for?
No.
Mutually exclusive.
Ah, clever. I also just noticed a bug when you're using preview scaling. Preview scaling. It currently sets the cursor back to an arrow when you're holding space. The moment you move the mouse because of my code.
Right.
There we go.
Have you fixed it now?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, like what the name mutex, once you understand that it's meaning mutually exclusive, it makes a lot more sense what it is. It makes it a lot more easier to reason because it's about mutually exclusive execution of code.
Yeah. I'm so glad this code works now, though. I originally considered making it so that when you hovered over an item, it would turn it into this move icon, but then I went, nah, it's better to just have the arrow most of the time.
Okay, so like I might consider it valid to change the icon when you're hovering over. Sorry, I do consider it a valid implementation when hovering over handles. But yeah, I agree that it should only use the moving icon when you're actively moving. Even the hover thing, I'm not entirely. I like, for me, it's a coin flip. I don't care either way. Because just like purely based on what I'm used to programs where I use both programs where it would show a hover icon and programs where it wouldn't, and I don't care either way. it's more important that it shows what it's doing while you're performing the action. Even that's not technically required, even then, but it's a nice indicator.
Yeah, it's a nice minor UX improvement that provided a nice deadlock.
Okay, so question:
Mm-hmm.
what if you make the FPS really low?
Then it shouldn't matter because it's based
Because a
on the
lot of the
Qt.
graphics thread will only update based on the
Um,
FPS. And so if stuff's happening on the graphics thread, it might actually occur with it might be a noticeable delay. So like if you set the frame rate to like 2.
Oh god.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger issues with OBS is that stuff like that with low frame rate. But I'm more just interested, like, is your hover icons and if your icons updating, is that occurring instantly?
Yes, that's
It does look
occurring
like it is.
instantly. The actual
Moving
resizing
the
is
source?
happening at 1 frame a second. Sorry?
No, if you move, like if you're moving the source around, does that also change icon instantly? Okay, so yeah, every action with that you've added is happening instantly, even if the preview isn't. I
Yes.
don't know how you solve that though.
No, I don't know either. You would have to.
Okay, actually, I do know how you solve it. I don't like it. The
But that
solution would
also means
be
resizing is smoother at 60 than it is at 30. That's
oh yeah,
amazing.
yeah, totally. So the actual solution would be you render the scene at whatever frame rate you have, but then you just render the UI,
Oh, you
the
can
edit
feel that.
stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What you say, you render the scene at whatever frame rate you have set, but the preview itself you render at a fixed frame rate depending on your refresh rate. That would be the actual solution, and I don't like it because that would be a pain to implement.
Yes, and also to some extent, it also doesn't reflect what is being broadcast at that point.
Well, I mean, like for instance, in that, like when I'm saying that, like if the red border moved, even if the scene itself was
Oh
behind,
yeah.
that would be fine.
Yeah,
That's
like
what I'm saying.
if you have Windows set to only show outlines when dragging windows, it's the same idea.
It'd be basically like that,
Hmm.
which would be fine. I'm just saying implementing that.
Okay, what if you had a? Does every created OBS like screen, whatever they're called internally, do they all respect the FPS, or can you have one that's loaded at a different frame rate? Because my idea here is you could have a second one that's laid on top that runs at the full 60 that is just the outlines and stuff.
So I'm gonna do a test on my own because I actually have been leaving OBS running all day because I was doing some camera. I used my camera. Okay, so integer frame rate, change it to 2. Okay, what you'll notice is if you go to the properties for a source, it will update at the frame rate that OBS is set to.
So basically,
that should give you an indication.
well, actually, the other way I can do this is this one's browser 6. Wait, let's enter.
Yeah, if you have a browser source and you go to the interact menu and then change the frame rate.
Oh yeah, this thing shows up in every tab on the mobile app.
No. See, by default, my laptop has private internet access connected to Sydney, and I keep seeing it and being really annoyed. And it reminds me I need to turn it off again on my moment.
Yeah,
Okay, so
even the interact window starts running at 2 FPS. Good lord.
Yeah. And like this is just like pure. This is just
It's a UX
consequence of how it works.
Yeah.
It's just an unfortunate consequence of the design of OBS. It's just like very difficult to figure out how you work around it. I don't know how you would unless you can figure out a way to make it so that things in the graphics thread can run at different frame rates, which would just be making it even more asynchronous.
Yes, but then once you do add that support, you could then technically have two different outputs that are running at different frame rates.
I'm just saying, I don't think Jim would like doing it, and I feel as though Jim is one of the very few people who could actually do it.
Yes.
Because I don't think I could do it.
Maybe in a few years.
Let me put it this way. It would take me a while. It would take me months to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
That would be me focusing only on that problem.
Yeah.
Because it would basically require a lot of fundamental changes to how things work under the hood, or at least it would require a lot of extra functions that try to not step over anything that exists already.
Yeah.
So, and making it compatible would be a nightmare. Making it compatible with old stuff would be a nightmare.
Yeah, it would.
To be fair, we do have sources which are asynchronous, though. Oh, okay, so here's the thing. Okay, actually, here's a good point. Go to your browser source. If you still have OBS, I'm assuming you still have OBS open. Oh, you can open it.
Just relaunching it now. It's quick.
Set a custom frame rate because...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, browsers by default will use... To be fair, I was using a window capture, which I'm pretty sure is also captured at OBS frame rate. But like, if you set the frame rate there, it is completely independent of OBS. But I suspect it will still use OBS frame rate. I suspect.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, okay. So that's a case where it's completely asynchronous.
And it's internally running at 60, but it's only displaying to...
Yeah. That's one of the more fundamental problems of OBS that like we don't ever talk about, because for most times it's never an issue.
Yeah, 99% of the time, as long as you're not running OBS at 2 FPS, you're not going to notice.
To be fair, there are cases where I would consider 1 or 2 frames per second to be a valid frame rate. And that's,
absolutely.
For instance, if you're doing a podcast where due to the nature of it, you only have a static image, but you still want to stream it to YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're recording...
Perfect sense.
Yeah, or if you're recording a time lapse.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But it results in this incredibly bad user experience as a consequence because of how everything is architected. But anyway, that's completely it's only tangential to what you're doing. I just wanted to confirm that, like, irregardless of frame rate, that your thing works instantly.
Well, yes, because none of my code runs within...
On the graphics thread.
On the graphics thread. All of it runs on the UI thread, which isn't tied to the OBS frame rate. That's fascinating, though. I didn't know that was an issue. That's amazing.
I've known this for a long time. I've just basically been ignoring it.
That's valid, too. It bugs me that it was that simple a solution, that I didn't look 3 lines up and go, that's strange.
Oh, yeah, Velis IP or Velisip? I don't know how to properly say your name. You're saying about the DVI-D and DisplayPort. I have an 144 hertz monitor, but it only accepts it on DVI-D because it's an early 144. Like, I'm connected with DisplayPort right now, and it won't accept 144. It's using an older DisplayPort spec. It's like there are sometimes valid reasons to want to use DVI-D. Unfortunately, my new graphics card in my new computer doesn't have a DVI-D port, and even active converters which are powered cannot reliably get DisplayPort to DVI-D at 144. So I've got 144 that's running at 60, and I can't do anything about it.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah, I'm running 3 displays on my 1080 Ti over DisplayPort, and then 2 of them use DisplayPort to DVI adapters. They're both running at 60, so it's not a problem. But damn,
If you were
I
going
would
for
be so
144,
frustrated.
even if you have an active converter, it might not work.
That's frustrating.
So
Because
yeah, like I am super
144
tempted.
aren't cheap.
Yeah, but this is a very early 144.
Yeah.
I am honest. Like if the best situation for me would be to sell this monitor and then buy a new 144 in its place, but the issue there is I would have to be slightly dishonest and not mention that it only does 144 on DVI-D and then hope no one checks.
Yeah.
Which, frankly, does not leave the best of tastes in my mouth.
No, it wouldn't. Hmm.
Obviously, the best 144 hertz monitors are CRTs, obviously.
Oh, sure. They
Those
can run
will
at what
age
refresh
forever.
rates?
Basically anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So long as the magnets can deflect fast enough. The electromagnets can deflect it fast enough.
Yeah.
Are you recording the FPS thing?
No, my new feature.
Oh, right.
For some reason, that didn't go straight to my clipboard. So now that branch of mine isn't dead anymore. Yay.
We've solved your problems. I still need a PR OBS IPC.
Hmm.
Actually, why don't I do that now?
Well, we haven't configured it to send the information we would need to change the color of the square.
It's hard to talk about when we're live and we're not sure if we can talk about it. But
I mean,
it doesn't actually matter.
It's basically up to you and me whether people know about this. We're currently at 13 viewers, apparently.
Yeah. I'll just say like I think it's basically done. I could probably PR it now and then just basically say, hey, review this, but we might want to make some changes to it.
Yeah.
Leading up to release. I think it's worth me at least making the PR now.
Mm-hmm.
Just so that if it is going to be rejected, it can be happen sooner.
Yeah, that's fair.
Git branch. What am I currently on? Okay, I am currently on the IPC plugin. Is there any diff?
Because that's the last time you did anything related to OBS.
It's been so long.
It has. But that's okay.
I just can't. This kind of stuff where it's like, hey, solve this problem for like 20 minutes. Like that I can do.
Mm-hmm.
That I can find the energy for. Sitting for more than an hour on something, I can't do at the moment. It's just
Well, we appreciate you hanging out, Velasip. These conversations are great because I learnt things as well today.
Like how to debug deadlocks.
And the OBS frame rate is tricky stuff. But
So
yes,
dumb.
deadlocks.
It's dumb.
Absolutely
It's
deadlock.
like, what are you gonna do?
Well, I mean, it makes, like, if it's not something that you consider directly, then it makes sense, right? You have a frame rate that is consistent across all displays, and matches your output, which is fine. But there are side effects with lots of dot points.
Yeah, the main the main issue though, like the big benefit of it is that like if you're presenting anything to like every time you present a source or a scene or anything to the user, it's always going to be the exact same frame, and it's always going to be the exact same at the
Yes.
exact same time. So like
Everything's in
everything
sync.
is synchronized. You only need to calculate once per frame. Like that's a big, massive benefit to doing it that way.
Yeah.
But again, all the side effects. Yeah,
but like that's
anyway,
that's programming in general, right? You always write something and then figure out what the side effects and downsides are afterwards, once everything's implemented.
My big issue is I try to consider every side effect before doing anything,
which results in lots of planning and very little dev sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's not
I've
even
been in that
that.
trap too.
It's like it also results that I mean, like that too, but it also just means I overcomplicate things.
Yes, that is certainly a challenge.
Rather than doing the simple implementation and then changing it as it's needed, I will spend an inordinate amount of time trying to get the perfect solution the first time.
Me too. Oh, I just realized my Discord overlay isn't actually on this
scene.
It should be. It's not on this scene.
Anyway, I fetch upstream. I'm currently just rebasing IBC plugin. If I can remember my SSH key password.
Oh no, it doesn't snap.
Oh, I need to squash these. oh. There's 13 commits. They need to be squashed all at once.
Yes, that would be a good place to start.
But here's the issue: is that it's really two changes. It adds a plugin, but it also changes the pipe system.
And
that actually game capture uses the pipe system, and so like I'm well aware that technically this PR is asking for game capture to be rebuilt. But one thing about planning ahead that is good is I made it so that the old game capture DLL that exists remains compatible, so it should still work regardless without having to. So like it just has to be you have to basically consciously not use the updated DLL of it because the old one should still work, even though a dependency of it has changed.
Yeah. The other interesting thing I figured out today is that I tried changing my cursor after launching my display capture, and display capture caches whatever cursor was set at the time of source creation rather than updating in real time. So like it's red right now, yeah? And if I go cursor, and I go mouse pointer, I go orange. It's orange on my screen, but on the stream it's not. If I reinitialize it, you can actually see in this preview that it's now... Oh, now it's updated. Did it update when I switched scenes? No. Oh, weird.
Hold on, okay. So I need to squash all these commits. And then once I've squashed it, I need to edit the commit and split it into two. Okay.
It's so randomized.
What is?
When I change the cursor color in Windows, it updates most of the time when I switch most of the time when I switch windows, but it's not always. Oh no, I hit a deadlock. I did it again.
Did you accidentally add in a deadlock?
I don't know. It's related to draw overflow. The graphics thread is stuck in a full lock on the scene as part of draw overflow. But the main thread is busy with oh. But the display capture properties also has a lock. Oh. And this is part of the source toolbar. I don't think this is related to my code at all.
Have you just happened to come across a deadlock, you think?
I think I came across a a deadlock related to the new code that Jim merged. Alright, let's do it with master and see if I can repro.
I need to get that Git client thing you're using. What's it called?
It's git-fork.com, I think.
How much is it?
You can use it for free. It'll just bug you every now and then to buy it for $50, which is a lot. It was originally free, and then they added a license to it.
Have you paid for the license?
Not yet.
So does it bug you?
It bugs me like once a day at most, but I have it open all day.
So it's not egregious.
No.
Okay. So would you say it's worth the free version even if it's bugging?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Oh well, okay.
I don't know how to trigger this, though. I don't know how I triggered it last time. I might have to rewatch the VOD.
I'm just currently trying to make a pull request out of the sorry, I'm trying to make a pull request out of IPC plugin. That's all I'm trying to do.
I don't know if this is a one session thing that you can do.
I mean, I'm basically just pushing the changes as I have them. I'm not trying to do anything special. I'm literally just doing it as.
Yeah, I don't know how to repro this. I wonder if it's because I opened the properties like. And why an overflow? None of this makes sense. Oh, here's a fun one. Don't think that's how that's supposed to work. I found a way to confuse the source toolbar. But I still can't trigger the crash.
Oh, but then I'd have to write up the PR description. Okay, I'm not doing this tonight.
I mean, you might as well do one part of it, which is combine the commits and
Well, split the commits.
split the commits and make it pretty, and then
I can edit them and change out the.
and rebase it on master so that you.
Already rebased it on upstream master.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe it was related to my code, but I don't know how.
Are you checking the VOD?
No. I'm still trying to reproduce the issue the way I did the first time. But I'm gonna have to check the VOD later for sure. Or I switch back to my branch and trigger the thing immediately because that's how it how it tends to go for me.
What do we do for commit titles when adding a plugin? And what's the most recent plugin we've added?
If we're adding a plugin, the prefix can just be plugins.
What's the most recent plugin we've added? OSS Audio? Isn't it? No,
yeah, OSS Audio.
Okay, history. Plugins add. Okay, plugins.
Called it.
Add OBS. Okay, I just wanted verification. Okay,
Yeah, it's good. I agree.
Okay, so I have two. Okay, and then get rebase. Continue. Okay, so my new head includes two commits, one for the IPC util and then one for the actual plugin, which also includes changes to the front-end API and bits of the UI, but they're minor. Either way, they currently have no commit descriptions, and I'll want to write that before I also then write up the pull request.
Mm-hmm.
But that's too much work for me at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm starting to think it's a conflict in my code. I'm gonna switch back to... one
What's
of these
happening on
branches.
GDQ at the moment?
Because...
Oh, they're playing Baba Is You.
Oh, really?
Oh, they're already 5 minutes into it. 5.5 minutes into it.
And it's a pretty short game, right?
Yeah, the estimate is 27 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And that's usually more than how long they actually take. So, I'd say about 25 minutes at most.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually interested in watching that if I did stay up late enough, and now I realized I have, but I've already started.
You know what, that's something that happened to me with Critical Role, where what ended up happening was they started streaming during lunchtime, and I wasn't paying attention. And so what I ended up doing was, it's a 4-hour stream normally, and I joined an hour late. So I watched the VOD at double speed
to catch up to live.
To catch up to live, which required refreshing after a certain point repeatedly because I kept almost catching up. But because the VOD player doesn't update with new information from the point of when you refreshed, I had to keep refreshing to catch up to the catch-up. And about, I want to say at the 2.5 or 3 hour mark is when I actually... No, I think it was the 2.5 hour mark. I caught up and was able to actually just load the live player and continue from live. But it is possible. It's just a pain.
What would help is if the Twitch player had a DVR.
Mm-hmm. Which
that would help a lot.
I did
an extension for it.
Yes, I did post a link to an extension in the OBS Discord because someone who was previously working on the Twitch player, and they've had DVR listed on stuff that they want to do for a while but just never got around to it. And so he made his own Twitch player DVR which is a custom player anyway, so it's like doesn't support 90% of the Twitch
I think
features.
Rodney also implemented Twitch DVR at one point as a separate player. Because he did it for GDQ, so like there was a player where you could watch GDQ live, but it would be a functioning DVR.
Yeah. So we definitely know you're still listening, Sonic, huh?
Yeah, but the issue, like, I do understand, like, DVR can be quite heavy to add to a player, and it's also it's just like
especially for something like Twitch, where streams can be anywhere between 4 hours long, 12 hours long, 24 hours long.
Yeah, like,
and they already don't show like scrubber thumbnails on like VODs longer than an hour, so it's like
Twitch is tries to avoid you caring about its VOD platform.
Yes, because they don't want to have to maintain so much.
Well, they did at one point, but then they realized no one used it because they did try to do videos.
They did, and I still have a bookmark for the videos section of their site, which does still exist.
What was I saying? Twitch in 2020 doesn't care about its VOD platform.
Yeah. Okay, I can't repro this.
You can't reproduce the deadlock that you ran into. Don't worry, I this has actually happened to me a number of times lately. Where I'll just run into one-time OBS crashes or deadlocks, and then it's just like I can never reproduce it again.
Mm-hmm.
And it has definitely been happening more recently. I don't know why. Maybe my grid mode change that's causing issues is actually doing a lot more damage. But I wouldn't put it past it.
It's possible.
I'm still really bummed about that.
Mm-hmm. Same.
That it will probably be reverted.
I think someone mentioned that it would be worth reverting before the next release if we can't track it down.
I think there was a writer.
Yeah.
I don't mind it being
CG,
I don't
maybe?
mind it being reverted. I'd just like it to be something that ends up getting back in.
Well, we have a beta period where if you have the time and the patience to try and dig into it. I did see that CG submitted a PR to fix reordering scenes for the multi-view.
I'm just really
burnt out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. Fair enough, Sonic. Yeah, DJ, YouTube handles VODs and live really well in terms of the player.
Does the DVR on YouTube let you play it back at more than one time speed?
Yes. And that is how I usually watch WAN Show. Because I don't even know what time it is supposed to be live. I just
but
know
they're always late anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So, yeah. The only issue that I run into, and I hate this about YouTube, but it absolutely makes sense. But what they do is half the time when WAN Show ends live, they set the video to private, and that causes the live player, even in VOD mode, to just immediately terminate and say the video has been set private while you're watching, and it's like, thanks, I was halfway through that. Usually it's because they realize that at some point they might have showed something that they shouldn't or whatever it might be, so they're re-uploading it or whatever, or cropping out or cutting out the bit that they don't want. But
I'm
it's just one of
annoyed
those...
that they don't have Twitch VODs.
Don't they?
No.
I guess technically they are a Twitch partner, which is why they don't... they're not technically supposed to multi-stream, but they haven't gotten in trouble
Yeah,
for
but
it.
they have Twitch contents. They are in a position to negotiate a contract.
Yeah.
Which they have.
Yeah.
Also,
maybe that's part of the agreement.
Also, Floatplane is using AWS video under the hood, so like
Surprise.
Floatplane's live stuff is using Twitch infrastructure. Like
Yeah.
that's not a joke. Floatplane Live uses Twitch under the hood. Thanks, Amazon.
And now Amazon Prime is actually called
I mean, Twitch Prime is called Prime Gaming.
Twitch Prime is now Prime Gaming.
That's so dumb.
I mean, it goes
Twitch
alongside
was
Prime
such
Video.
Good branding.
Yes.
Twitch Prime was such good branding, though.
It was, absolutely.
Prime Gaming does not have that same branding appeal.
It's too generic. That's the real issue. Because Twitch Prime isn't entirely games. One aspect of it is, yes, they give you free games, but that's not the point of it.
What about all the people on Twitch who don't do gaming at all?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the musicians or the IRLers.
Mm-hmm. Or the podcasters. The programmers.
They enjoy Prime from Twitch just as much.
Exactly, maybe even more.
I mean, that's debatable. But I mean, actually, no. I mean, let's be fair. Twitch Prime definitely benefits people who care about gaming more than it cares than anyone else. It just happens to also benefit other people.
Yeah. So I basically got 2 features working today.
Hey.
One of which I submitted as a PR, which failed probably on another platform. Playing format, but
it happens to me too.
I definitely did it, but
I know. It happens to me too.
Recording, save dialogue. Alright, let's fix it. While we're here, before I go to bed.
I'm gonna be going to bed too here in a moment.
Which files did it complain about?
Oh, you're doing the exact same thing I do.
Main and settings, for joking.
Control K, Control D, or whatever the equivalent is in Visual Studio Code.
Shift Alt F.
Right. In Visual Studio, it's Control K, Control D. Well, actually, sorry, Control K, releasing K, but still keeping Control down, hitting D.
Yeah, that's
or is it
weird.
Control K, releasing both and D? Whatever. It's Control K and D.
I'm surprised that the installer folder isn't get ignored. Jim's diff must look like a mess, like mine, which also has a folder of icons and a Microsoft Store folder.
I mean, like, you can also do what I do is I tend to go git status and then pick out a file name that I'm wanting to check a diff on and then just do git diff on that specific file. Or I'll do a wildcard git diff.
Sure. Yeah.
So
it's
there
just
are
that
ways around to diff specific parts.
Yeah, I wonder if I can tell it to, um, mm, to get my Git client to ignore it without it actually ignoring it as part of the Git repo itself. I don't care enough.
Like, is there a way to make git ignore it without updating the git ignore file and therefore having a file that is
Exactly.
treated as changed?
Technically, I could have the parent, the root directory git ignore file that I just don't commit, but it then mentions two specific subdirectories to ignore. That would be a potential solution.
What happens if you put git ignore into the git ignore?
And then it will
Will it
Git-
ignore changes to itself?
yes, and it will disappear from view in the GitHub website, even though technically the file still exists internally. It's super weird.
But I'm saying, like, that would be a way to be able to ignore things locally without it showing up in the commit.
Mm-hmm. It's git ignore is one of the weirdest files that I've ever worked with.
Git is a weird program in general.
It is, but it works. Nice.
Once you actually get your head around Git, it's really powerful. But like there's a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually not that steep. Like, the majority of what you actually need to do on a day-to-day basis is pretty easy to pick up. It's just like the issue there is that you don't know what you're actually doing.
Yes. And then the more advanced stuff is considered dangerous and therefore the first time you end up trying it, you end up destroying something and go, okay, I'm not touching that. Stuff like rebase or force pushing or
yeah, it takes a long time of using Git to actually understand how Git works and why you're doing certain things to a point where you can
feel comfortable doing more complicated ones. Yes,
but you have to very consciously want to learn how Git works in order to do that stuff.
Which this client has helped me, be more comfortable in rebasing and stuff like that, and knowing how to correctly resolve merge conflicts. I mean, Visual Studio Code actually has a nice merge conflict resolver too. Yeah. There we go. It succeeded.
There's also there we go. I'm trying to remember. There was one particular feature which was recent that was added to very new versions of Git, but aren't in the majority of client. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was one feature.
Wait, did I end up caring about? Yeah.
I don't remember. Anyway, I'm going to be heading out now that your problems have been solved.
Yes, thank you very much for helping.
And I'm probably going to head to bed. So, see you, man.
No worries.
Have a good rest.
Good night. On that note, I'm probably going to head off soon too. In a moment. I was going to play some Forza as well. But I haven't been able to look straight for the past hour and a half. So, probably time to head off. But we did well today. We submitted one pull request, which I've been working on for like 3 days, which is great. I love a quick PR turnaround. And then we also fixed a very aggressive mutex deadlock in my preview hover cursors. Which I still need to spend more time on, not necessarily cleaning up the code, and I'm going to pull up a compare here. to give you an idea of the changes involved, because it's split up into two things. Change cursor when adjusting items in the preview is one, and then hover cursors. They're two separate changes. And essentially I have an update cursor function that goes, if we're not open hand and the flags are currently, if we're telling it to unset it, then unset it. Which includes an unset cursor function call when you release the event, release the mouse, which is fine. It makes sure you're using the box items cursor when using the box items capability. We update the cursor during crop, during stretch, during mouse move. So technically, if I combine these into one change, then I would get rid of these update cursor calls as part of stretch item and stuff like that, and it would purely be part of mouse move, which would cut down some of the code. It wouldn't be a big functional change, it's more just a cleanliness thing at that point. And I don't even know if I can clean up this code. I also need to test it on fractional scaling. So my Surface Book 2, for example, I need to make sure that the cursor matches what it's looking at. So I don't think I can simplify this code any further, at the very least. And then I have to research mutexes more, which is fine. But overall, I mean, this is 55 lines of code. Most of it is figuring out which cursor to show and where to show it. And this logic from here to here is reused from 3 other places in the preview anyway. Which there is the downside of more code duplication. And actually, even worse is that this code is in the getStretchHandledData function, but it needs to exist because I'm sending a start position parameter, which is kind of dumb because you would think that the stretchHandledData would already know where the cursor is, and therefore then calculate it where it is in relation to, I don't know. That's just the way the code works. But overall, it's a nice short snippet. And as long as there are no deadlocks, then I'm happy with how that goes, how that works. I'm just going to wait until this completes to make sure that it runs on every platform correctly. I will probably test this myself on Ubuntu tomorrow. I might stream tomorrow as well. I do have other branches of stuff that I want to do. But I can cross out video save dialog. So looking at my list, I have transform scale, which I am stuck on in certain places because mathematics are hard. Windows taskbar. So technically when you have say I switch this. Say you right click on Notepad, these are the recent files. I was considering making the recent section in OBS show you recent scene collections. I don't know if that's a good use of the recent section, but I think it would be cool. So I want to play around with that. Just mainly as a learning the Windows API thing, Qt practice, and general OBS dev practice. Why not, you know? What else have we got? The splash screen. So Dylan and I both have our own branches of the splash screen with different things. I'm really happy with how it functions, except for there's a section where it says finalizing, and my OBS build that I'm running has this splash screen, but sometimes gets frozen on the finalizing stage. So I want to see if I can break down the finalizing stage further to figure out exactly where and why my OBS is freezing. And it would provide a reason to split that finalizing down. And obviously I have a bunch of little to-dos here as part of the splash screen that I haven't done. I want to do a cool splash screen like Photoshop and stuff do, where they're like not just a square, like that, because Qt does allow that. But that requires a designer. So mine is super basic at the moment, which is fine. Browser transitions. I don't know enough about sources internally in OBS to do it well, but I want to try and get better at doing that. So that actually might be something I work on tomorrow, the browser transition. Because essentially there are two ways we can... let me show you roughly what I'm talking about here. Oh, I closed here. I did. Depends on... Depends on the country, basically. Yeah. Yeah. Princeton's WordNet. And the problem is when you do programming and read so much of the internet that is in the US, your spelling starts to adapt to what you're used to seeing rather than what you were taught when you were younger. Don't worry, Sonic, neither can I. I can barely see. I'd be better off doing this stream with my eyes closed while this is building. OBS is, I'm not. So yes, there's a reason there's a thing here called finalize messages. Oh. Knackers, thanks for the follow. Hi. Must be early morning for you, right? Welcome to the order. Welcome to 11:22 p.m. on Friday. Been a busy night. So what are we doing here? Browser transition. Okay, so you've all seen stingers, right? When you switch... Oh, I don't have a stinger video loaded here. Well, then my example is bad. Hey, 9:22 isn't too bad. 9:22 a.m. is not bad. You're exactly 12 hours behind Sonic. So there you go. So currently, when you switch scenes, you can use a video. I am experimenting with a browser transition where you can have a web page. There are a number of challenges there. The biggest one being, is it best to have the web page loaded at all times and it just listens to scene transition events? Or should it only load the moment the transition starts? Benefit there is overall CPU and memory usage. Downside is it'll take time to initialize. And also in terms of OBS transitions, there is a transition start event, there is not a transition stop event. So you'd basically have a start event, an estimate of how long the transition needs to be, and then you have to decide, okay, well, if we look at scene transitions here, oh no, not again. Oh, my OBS lags sometimes when switching scenes. So with a stinger, the length of the transition is determined by the length of the video. But with other ones, like a fade, you as the user define the transition. Now, for a browser transition, which makes more sense, should it be that the user chooses, hey, I want this transition to take half a second? Or should the transition itself, the web page, go, I am a 200 millisecond transition? I think it'd be better to have the user control it, but have a way for the web page to go, no, I'm in charge. But in that case, then that browser transition has to be loaded at all times to notify the OBS UI, hey, I am a fixed length transition. Oh, that's fair enough. No worries, Knackers. Enjoy your day. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for lurking. It's appreciated. So yeah, that's something I'm experimenting with. And the thing is, I don't know Qt slots and signals well enough, and the OBS event UI event system, because it's all callbacks, really. They're triggers and callbacks. It's a mess. But it's one of those things. Oh, and the final challenge of a browser transition is it would have the same limitation that... Actually, would it? The first implementation would have the same limit. Did it freeze again? Yeah. Oh. It's fine. The first implementation would definitely be limited to only one scene. Yeah, it's okay now. It'd be limited to showing one scene at a time, just like the Stinger. But the Stinger track map PR does allow for showing two at the same time, so I'd be curious. I would want to experiment with Palacus to get a browser one that can show two scenes at once, because that would be neat. But I'm going to end it there, because it is 11:27 and I am ready to sleep. My cat is already asleep, so I am going to join her there. And so hopefully I'm doing a stream tomorrow. We'll see. Weekends go by so fast. It's nuts. But thanks for hanging out. Thanks for all the great follows today. Thanks again to the raid from Tom, I want to say. I hope I got that right. Yep, Tom. Those of you lurking, thanks for lurking as long as you have. Enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, or night, whatever time it may be for you, and I shall see you next time. Bye-bye! I don't even know which scene it is. It's this one, but my hotkeys don't work. There we go.